Hey there! Welcome back to another review. This time it is of the 1984 classic Beverly Hills Cop. Now, I don't know what I can say about this film that already hasn't been said by tons of other critics online or in print. This film is an absolute classic. It's considered as such by numerous people for a multitude of legitimate reasons. This is on best of lists. It's considered one of the best comedies of its era, one of the best films of the 1980s, and all of it is for very good reasons because this movie, it's a great movie. It still holds up really well. It's insanely entertaining. Eddie Murphy is electric as Axel Foley. The rest of the cast all do their jobs really admirably as well. This is one of those movies that is lightning in a bottle. It really is. And it's a film that I really can't think of anything that I personally found wrong with it. I think it just has the perfect formula. I think it's one of those movies that perfected the formula that it created. Uh, Now, this isn't the first action comedy out there. There were others before this, like 48 Hours, which also had Eddie Murphy in it, and other movies in the genre. But this is the first film that I think really got everything right. From the bits of action to the comedy to the cast to the direction to the soundtrack to the score, um, to the overall plot and concept. And it's honestly really amazing that this film turned out as well as it did, considering this is a story, this is a script that was written on the fly to the point where there are scenes in the movie where certain cast members are carrying around papers, which you think are just going to be, props for the policemen to carry around paperwork. That's actually the script because they were writing stuff on the fly. Eddie Murphy was coming up with stuff all the time when they would have writer's block, when they would have a hard time coming up with something new or different for the film and for certain scenes. Eddie was there to add some new life to the project. It was originally a project that was intended to star Sylvester Stallone, and there were all these changes that were made with the script to suit Stallone's tastes. A lot of the elements that were in Stallone's version wound up in the film Cobra, and when Stallone dropped out, there was rumors about getting Mickey Rourke and rumors about getting a whole slew of other actors for the role of Axel Foley. Eddie Murphy was not one of the first choices. He was way down the list when it comes to actors to play the role. I mean, let's just take a look at a long list of people that the studio were looking at to play Axel Foley before they went with Eddie Murphy. Jeff Bridges, James Caan, Billy Crystal, Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford, Richard Gere, Mel Gibson, Gregory Hines, Michael Keaton, Nick Nolte, Al Pacino, Richard Pryor, Dennis Quaid, Kurt Russell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, John Travolta, Robin Williams, and Bruce Willis. I mean, that is one hell of a list. Now, that being said, it is something that I found on IMDb, so it easily could just be a bunch of bullshit. But it makes sense at the same around this time that they were looking for someone like that, because this was a big project. This is a script that had been thrown around Hollywood for years up until this point. So it was something that Paramount felt strongly about, the producers felt was going to be a hit, and they really wanted to make sure they got it right. And despite all of that, they took a massive risk with Eddie Murphy. Yes, he was in 48 Hours before this, but he was not known for playing an action role. He was not an actor who anyone really recognized as a talent who could potentially pull that off. he also hadn't led a film. He wasn't a headliner yet. He wasn't the main star in 48 Hours. He was one of the stars. He was one of the cast members in Saturday Night Live. He was not the man. So Paramount and the producers, Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, they took a massive risk with Eddie Murphy, and it paid off, and then some for them. But it was an incredibly enormous risk to take, to have this big film that they really felt could be a tentpole for a franchise, that they felt was going to be a huge hit, and, you know, have it star a relative unknown at the time. Except, you know, I mean, a lot of people did recognize Eddie Murphy before Beverly Hills Cop because of his popularity on Saturday Night Live and in 48 Hours, but a relative unknown when it comes to starring in a film and being the lead man. So, thankfully, though, gave Eddie a shot, and the rest is history, because this film would not be as great as it is without Eddie Murphy. Without his involvement, this is not a classic. I don't even know if this is a franchise. Like, if Mickey Rourke played Axel Foley instead of Eddie Murphy, do you really think this would have been a franchise? It would have been a one-off. And it's just one of those instances where lightning struck. It was fate that Eddie Murphy would come across this project and that Eddie Murphy would play Axel Foley. So Eddie's not the only one that the producers took a risk on, though. The director, Martin Brest, was considered to be essentially dead meat. It's considered to be done. Dead. Dead as a doornail by Hollywood, by a lot of elites in Hollywood because of what happened with War Games when he was fired from the film. So he was considered to be just damaged goods. And Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, they didn't believe that. They did not believe that he was done. That, you know, that was it. That he should never work in Hollywood again. Because they'd seen what he had done beforehand and thought he was a talented director. And they still had faith in him. So they wound up just hounding Martin Brest. They kept calling him up. They kept bugging him. Until eventually he did agree to take the job, and it resurrected his career, and it's one of his best efforts, and when it comes to his directing. So it's another risk that they took that paid off. Even though it has a budget of like $13 million, back in 1984 or 1983 when they're working on this movie, that's a decent budget for a action comedy, that's for sure. And yeah, it's just one of those movies that a lot of people grew up with, a lot of people watched on television, myself included. I grew up, I would think I was first introduced to this movie by my parents because they were really big fans of the movie. So I remember watching this on VHS and then watching it on DVD. And it's just such a entertaining, fun movie to watch. It's one of those films that, like I said, it's lightning in a bottle. It really is. Everything just clicks. So Martin Brest directed the film. I thought his direction was delectable. I thought it was really quite excellent. The way that he shot certain action sequences was really spectacular. The car chase in the beginning with the cigarette truck, that was one that I thought was just really well shot and really well done. The shootouts were handled well too, and he just did a remarkable job capturing the energy of the film and capturing the electricity of its star, Eddie Murphy. The script by Daniel Petrie Jr. I also think is quite good. I think it's just loaded with a lot of good lines, and it has a decent plot in terms of how everything unfolds, and the stuff involving the villains and what they're doing in Beverly Hills and so on and so forth. It's not 100% original. It's not anything you haven't seen before, but it's handled well. And that being said, though, most of the lines in this film and most of the funny scenes and most of the hilarious stuff is ad-libbed. Most of it is just off the top of Eddie's head or improvised by other actors like Judge Reinhold and John Ashton, who got the roles of Rosewood and Taggart because they nailed the audition by improvising, because that's something that Martin Brest was looking for. Martin Brest was looking for actors that could improvise on the fly. And the line that Rosewood says at one point in the movie, where he scolds John Ashton's character Taggart on how he's been eating too much red meat. That was something they did in the audition because Martin Brest was challenging them to portray a married couple, an old married couple that had been married for years. And both of them just ran with it and scored a touchdown in the audition and then continued to score points in the film itself. They are also a huge reason why this film works as well as it does. I don't think this would be as good as it is without those two either. They are very crucial to this franchise and to this film's success. It's I mean it's definitely evident in Beverly Hills Cop 3 when there's no Taggart, when there's no John Ashton. Um but yeah, they were just fantastic and a lot of fun. Lisa Eilbacher was good too. Ronny Cox as Bogomil. Stephen Berkoff played a great bad guy. He always plays a great bad guy to me. He's always a great jerk off, and he did a really solid job playing another jerk off that you love to hate. Apparently, he's not a very big fan of this movie, and to each their own, Steven. But I don't get it. I definitely don't understand why you're not a fan of the film. I don't, but it's his opinion. Um, I don't know if it's about something about the production or he didn't like his scenes or how his character was portrayed or something. I don't know what it is, but he seems to be kind of bitter about it. Um, I don't really think I don't really see a reason why, because he does a good job. You also have real life police chief Gilbert R. Hill, who's an actual real life police detective. Not chief, he was a detective. He plays Inspector Todd, and he actually was a cop. He's a Detroit cop in real life. He was at one point, before he passed away. So that added a new dynamic that you don't see very often, like an actual cop playing a role in the movie. Of course, you have Bronson Pinchot, who at this point was a relative unknown, as Surge, who had a bit of a breakout role that led him to getting his role on the TV show that he was well known for. Was it Perfect Strangers? Was that what it was? I think that's what it was. And you also have James Russo, who plays Axel's friend, who gets killed early in the movie and is the reason why Axel Foley goes to Beverly Hills to get revenge and also solve a crime in the process. Paul Reiser is also in this as one of Axel's friends who works at his department. So, yeah, it's a really great cast of great characters and really good actors. The score by Harold Faltermeyer is catchy. It's got a great beat and tune to it. The Axel F theme is one of the most iconic movie themes out there. It is just such a memorable theme, and it just suits Eddie so perfectly. It fits him like the jacket that he loves to wear so much in the films. It just fits him perfectly. His attitude, his energy. I don't like the fact that it's associated with that stupid, what is it, Crazy Frog song, but it's still a great tune. It really is. The rest of the bits of music were good too, but when it comes to Harold Faltermeyer's score, but it's the main theme that most people remember. and for good reason. Another thing about the film that a lot of people remember is the soundtrack, and it's a great soundtrack. So many great songs. You've got "Stir It Up" by Patti LaBelle. You have "The Heat Is On" by Glenn Frey, and you also have "Neutron Dance" by the Pointer Sisters. What I really like about Neutron Dance is that it plays in the opening action sequence, and when you hear the song, it's not something you would really think would work in an action scene. It's a Pointer Sisters song. It's a pop track, but it works so well. It fits so wonderfully, and it's just one of those things where it's just an example of this movie's excellence and just how great this film is, and how unique the film was at the time too, to take songs like that and to put them in an action scene. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you see all the time nowadays, and you saw that all the time afterwards, but it wasn't that often. That wasn't something you saw like all the time in action films or in films like Beverly Hills Cop back in the day. Now it was fairly unique to have, you know, a soundtrack, a pop soundtrack, be the main driving force in a lot of different action sequences in the movie. Now, other aspects of the production are also really worth noting, like the cinematography. I thought Bruce Surtees did a really great job capturing the seedy atmosphere of Detroit and the just crazy, larger than life mood and vibe of Beverly Hills. The editing by Arthur Coburn and Billy Weber is very tight. It's very precise, and the film has a running time that goes by like a breeze. It's 105 minutes, but it never really feels like it's wasting your time or it's dragging its feet. It's at a full sprint for the full running time, and it doesn't run too fast. It doesn't, not one of those movies that goes by too quickly. It's still there's still enough moments where it kind of slows down enough for you to be able to savor some things or catch your breath. But other than that, it's just a fast-paced, fun, hilarious movie. It's just a great film, and I love it. I've loved Beverly Hills Cop ever since I saw it when I was young, and I still love it to this day. It's one of my favorite films. Definitely one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies. I would probably say probably my favorite Eddie Murphy film. It's also the first Eddie Murphy film that I ever saw, so I think that might be a bit of it. But this movie doesn't hold up just because of nostalgia. Like, this is just a classic film. This is one of those movies that everything about it works, and it's not just, oh, I grew up with it and that's why I like it. No, it's a damn good movie. I don't really know what to say about the film in terms of, I mean, I could quote things, I could talk about stuff, but I really don't want to do that, because I'm not Eddie Murphy. I can't even come close to capturing his energy and his electricity and his charisma and his talent. I mean, he was on top of the world with this movie. Like, this is Eddie at his prime and at his very best. And he was just in his early 20s. It's amazing that he was able to just nail it so well and do such a great job with this role and this character and make it iconic and make the film iconic at such a young age. He had so much weight on his shoulders with this film, and he carried it like it was nothing, like it was just a feather, or it was just thin air on his shoulders. There was nothing there. It's an amazing accomplishment for a young actor, especially, you know, someone who's just known for doing comedy and known for being the guy who saved SNL. And I think I'll just end this with talking about some trivia, because, I mean, the jokes are hilarious, they're quotable, they're memorable. The banter back and forth between Eddie and the rest of the cast is a lot of fun to watch, especially with John Ashton and Judd Reinhold and his boss, Gilbert R. Hill. And the action when it is there is honestly quite exciting. The opening sequence with the truck chase, the shootouts. I would say the action in this is not as impressive technically, or it's not as unique or as dynamic as some of the action in the second film or in other action movies. But this is a comedy first and an action movie second. So that doesn't really bother me. It's just that's one of the only things about the film that I could say is not on par with everything else in terms of overall quality, is that the action is solid, and it's really good for what it's trying to do, but it's there are sequences with the action that aren't like really action packed or aren't particularly adrenaline inducing. But at the same time, I don't think that's really the point of the film. So I don't really think that's that much of a negative. It's just something that I noticed, and it's something that with this film that if I was forced to say that there was something that could be better about this movie, it would be the action. It could have used a little bit of improvement with the action sequences. I think the second film definitely does that. That's why if there's anything the second film does better than this, I would say it's the action sequences. Um, the rest of the film and other aspects is on par with it, because I also really love Beverly Hills Cop 2. Um, so yeah, for an action comedy, it's a really great mix, and it's just it is. It's lightning in a bottle. It really is. It's such a lightning in a bottle film. So now we get to the bits of trivia that I want to talk about, because I think some of them are actually quite fun. For instance, as you all know, I'm a huge fan of RoboCop, and there's a RoboCop connection to Beverly Hills Cop, other than the fact that it takes place in Detroit. So in this movie, the actor Michael Gregory, he appears as the front desk manager when Axel Foley checks in. Well, he was the SWAT team leader in RoboCop, who was on the screen when the city councilman takes the mayor hostage. So I thought that was a fun bit of trivia. Also, in the original script for the film, it wasn't a banana that Axel shoved in the tailpipe. It was a potato. And that just doesn't have the same ring to it, you know. You know, banana in the tailpipe versus potato in the tailpipe, like that just doesn't really. And how are you gonna fit a potato in there? And I could, I'm glad they went with the banana. But the reason why they went with the banana is because they had a hard time, I think, doing the potato stuff, because I guess they were supposed to, like, he was supposed to shove like chopped potatoes into the tailpipe, but due to time constraints, they couldn't actually shoot scenes in a kitchen, so they were in a rush, and so they just decided to go with a banana. And the rest is history. And it actually turned out to be the better decision to go with a banana. It's just funnier. A banana in the tailpipe is funnier than a potato in the tailpipe. It really is. And the mansion that's used in the final shootout, Maitland's mansion, that is the same mansion at the end of Commando. So if it looks familiar to you, there's a reason for that. I remember when I first saw Commando, I was like, this looks familiar to me. Like, I kept expecting Rosewood and Taggart and Foley to, like, show up out of nowhere from the bushes or something alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger's John Matrix and start shooting at the Colombian bad guys. Because it's the exact same set. It's the exact same mansion. Um, Now, the funniest bit of trivia involves Stallone, and I don't even know how true this is, but I'm just imagining this scenario, and it's cracking me up. So Stephen Berkoff was interviewed years ago, and he was asked by a UK newspaper why Sylvester Stallone left Beverly Hills Cop. And Stephen Berkoff said that it was due to disagreements about the orange juice in his trailer. So I'm just imagining this whole ridiculous sequence of events where Stallone is in his trailer. He gets some Florida's natural orange juice and he's pissed off and he's just like, I want Minute Maid, motherfucker. I'm just like, this is all the things. I don't think it's true, but it's just hilarious to think about it. That the reason why Stallone left the project is because he didn't get the orange juice he wanted. I want Minute Maid. If I don't get my Minute Maid, I'm gonna leave this movie. Just like, this is fucking really. One Minute Maid, motherfucker. And it gets crazier because there's a rumor that was spread by the producer Don Simpson regarding Sylvester Stallone's participation in the movie. And the rumor is that when Simpson wanted to find a covert way to kick Stallone off the project, he pulled strings so Stallone could participate in a European medical trial that aimed to create super erectile penises, erectile capabilities for men, and the project immediately cast Eddie Murphy in the lead role and moved on once Stallone went overseas. I just you get the orange juice story, you got the super erectile rumors about Stallone going overseas to get some super erectile treatment, like the super soldier serum for boners. You're just like, oh man. So it's honestly rather fitting that there's some funny stories associated with this hilarious, funny movie that you have. Whether they're true or not, it's just a riot. Stallone and his orange juice. The rumor that Stallone went to Europe to get his penis worked on so he could get a longer and harder schlong. Just, oh man. Uh, but anyway, that's really the last things that I wanted to say in regards to Beverly Hills Cop. If you haven't seen this movie, which I'd honestly be surprised if you haven't, because it's such an iconic film and a lot of people have talked about it, and it's been praised and discussed by so many different critics and so many different people. But if you haven't seen the film, check it out. I give it my highest recommendation. It's a great movie. And if you're already a fan of this film, I would recommend buying this Blu-ray set that came out earlier this year, because it does have a remaster print of the first film in 4K, and it's the best the film has ever looked or sounded. The sound mix in this is particularly really good. I think the sound mix on all of these movies was really good. And there's some extra features on this set as well, at least for the first movie. The second and third films get shit, which, I mean, I don't really care about the third film not getting anything, but the second movie, that blows. But I'll talk about that more when I review the second film. But when it comes to the first movie, there's some extra behind-the-scenes stuff from back in the day. There's the same features that were on the DVD and original Blu-ray release that are ported over. And there's some other bits and pieces. But yeah, if you're a fan of the film, it's definitely worth it. It's got a great transfer and sound mix and new features. Plus, you get the sequels as well. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about Beverly Hills Cop except If I were to rate it at 5 stars, it gives 5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. I can't really give it anything less than that. You know, get the fuck out of here. No, get the fuck out of here. But anyway, no, seriously, it deserves that. It really does. And yeah, thanks for watching my review of Beverly Hills Cop. And as always, I will see you later.